this is cool. This is
supposed
something
to work this
completely
way.
Wow, this is crazy.
Oh, nice.
Who
This is something we needed.
gives a
I really
shit?
wanted to find
Sure. This is unbelievable.
Oh, I see.
You know what?
Buck FIM.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Buck FIM. We are just plowing through all the great guests that we have here today. Today we have an awesome guest. We have Will Tompkinson coming in from Pointfuse, and we're going to be chatting about point clouds and how those point clouds can be transitioned into a new world of point cloud usage called meshing. So, Will, thank you for joining on the line.
My pleasure, Dennis. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, likewise. I feel like I always keep coming back to your team because, as you know, I'm a software aficionado. I absolutely love working with different types of softwares, but this one was one that immediately floored me the second I started using it. So Will, you know what? Let's back up a little bit here. Give me a little bit of background of yourself. Where did you come from? How did you get into Pointfuse?
So, as you can probably tell, I've got one of these funny accents. I started my career back in Britain, worked for Ordnance Survey, the National Mapping Agency over there. My background's in geography and GIS and things originally, and then moved to Canada 13 years ago, 2007. Started working for Optech, or now known as Teledyne Optech, who manufacture LiDAR systems. And then I moved on to Fugro, who are commonly known as the world's biggest surveying firm. And then in the intermediate time, I a good customer of mine when I was at Optech, who started operating the world's first mobile mapping system at Infotera, who then became Astrium and now are part of Airbus. That was the Optech link system. So Mark Senior, who was the lead on operating that link system, as I said, it was the first one in the world. I was his primary point of contact at Optech. And as the years evolved on, Mark and I hooked up again 6 years ago. Mark founded this, or co-founded, sorry, this software firm called Pointfuse back in Britain. And we joined up again, and we've been working through the challenges of bringing reality capture and point clouds to ever widening audiences, especially within the digital construction space and facility management ever since.
Awesome. That's one hell of a history, that's for sure. I love seeing the growth of how a company becomes who they are today. It's good to see. So with that being said, the growth of point clouds has been there too. They've gone a long way in the past 10 years. With that being said, what do you see as the major drawback for point clouds?
Well, point clouds, don't get me wrong, are amazing data sources. You can see everything that you want to be able to see. You know, it's the best 3D survey data set you're going to have of any environment which you capture it within. But point clouds are large, they're cumbersome. You often need specialist viewing software. They can be a lot of subject. They can be subject to a lot of personal interpretation. And let's be honest, not everybody is a point cloud specialist, but many people who need to use the deliverables from point clouds need to better access them, need to better understand what's within them. And so, coming from the side of laser scanning and reality capture, a constant challenge which we've had, regardless of the industry which we've been looking to implement these technologies within, is that we need to better translate all this wealth of information that we have in these awesome point cloud data sets into deliverables and data products that can be used better within the projects which practitioners actually want to use them within.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I personally use point clouds quite frequently because we use laser scanning at WZMH all the time. And we have just dealt with the punches as they came. That was until we discovered that meshing was a possibility. I remember when we were going back, oh geez, like 2-3 years ago, and I was trying to find a plausible option to be able to take and use these point clouds inside of a Revit environment, just purely in Revit, to be able to establish something. Because I've seen the scan to BIM softwares coming out. There's been a lot of back and forth as to how that process should look. But I mean, from experience, viewing those point clouds in a Revit environment gets extremely heavy, and there's tons of guesswork because it all depends on the person cleaning it up to provide you with that point cloud data and send it to you in order for you to interpret accurately. So how has Pointfuse helped with this daunting task?
So fundamentally, Pointfuse provides project efficiencies when converting point clouds into 3D models that can be used better within either digital construction related or facility management related workflows. So what I mean by that is that rather than you needing to get your head around how you're going to import this 300 gigabyte point cloud into Revit or whatever your software of choice is, we provide a series of automated processes. They are underpinned by some unique meshing algorithms that really Pointfuse was built on. But really our end game is to be able to provide these intelligent classified models, or for the user of the software to be able to produce these intelligent classified models that can be used seamlessly within your 3D coordination software environment of choice, or within your design software environment of choice. The Pointfuse meshes are typically between 1/10 or 100th the size of the original point cloud.
That's huge.
And then on top of that, we've got some automated workflows in there that help you classify elements within that mesh that you've produced and really produce models which, by the time you use them within your 3D coordination environment or even within Revit, you don't have to think that this is laser scan data I've got in there. All you need to know is that now you've got as-built data for that site which you're working on.
That's true, and that speaks volumes. For those of you who haven't worked with point clouds, especially like scanning and registering them, there's a huge thought process that goes in behind it when you're going out to site and having to put together a point cloud. And that's how you're going to end up using it in the end result software. The problem is the amount of time and effort that it takes to set up and chop up files and get things ready before you even go to registration. Like that should not be something that we have to do. And so the big word that Will here has been tossing around is classification. Like we don't get that capability easily within a point cloud software. So with registration times starting to gain in efficiency, yes, the new Leica product, the RTC, amazing, thank you, that's wicked. However, the classification of the data in scan to BIM applications is still a very heavy task. So again, back to that point, how important is that classification of assemblies to you?
Well, it gives you the labeling to be able to actually work with meaningful information when it comes to workflows such as scheduling and verification and clash detection, just to name just a few. Within the 3D capture industry, with those of us who've been working with point clouds within research environments or commercial environments for the last 20 odd years, the sort of the pièce de la resistance, with the sort of the ultimate game, the ultimate goal which we've been trying to go ahead for has been having the best automatic processes for producing these models in the same way that a person digitizing a point cloud can produce them.
Yeah.
So, we've been aiming for this pièce de la resistance of, hey, let's press a button and suddenly we have, the best Revit model we can ever have. Well, I'm sorry, folks, that technology, we're still behind the 8th ball with that type of technology. Don't underestimate, your brain and 2 eyeballs with regards to understanding, for us, people being able to understand what's in a point cloud. What we try and do within Pointfuse is give you a set of automated some automatic, but then a set of more interactive automated workflows that allow the mechanical engineer, the electrical engineer, the construction specialist to be able to recognize and label the assemblies within their environment according to schemas that they understand. We've implemented, for example, wizards for constructing IFC schemas within your model that can be consistent, can be standardized, can be relevant to your industry, and give you the tools that allow you to be able to really classify your environment using your own expert knowledge, using really just a point and click mechanism. And enable you to produce these models at typically 70% less project time than you would have spent had you digitized from scratch. To produce these models which are now compatible with your existing design data and whatever other data which you as an industry are using.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy. Like the first time I used this, I was skeptical, and this was I'm skeptical of every software. I always go in with a reverse notion of it, and when I was able to actually just click a button and have it separate out assemblies according to their normals. So in programming language, for those of you who don't understand, normals are the direction of items that face a certain way. So it's essentially the direction of an element in an environment. So what it does is it actually separates out horizontal flat surfaces from vertical surfaces, from noise, which might be items that are underneath a certain size, and then we'll put the rest of it on an uncategorized layer, which that's obviously painting a very basic picture of the classification. But for those of you who have worked with point clouds in the past, having to determine this and activate normals within your Revit project and not being able to turn those items on or off in your project is very frustrating. So I mean, you can obviously speak to this in more detail, Will, and I just want to bring up the point that Autodesk, yes, they just did come out with, so that you don't know, Autodesk Recap 2022. They came out with a scan to mesh capability, but does it actually compete?
Well, we are mesh. We do. Our software is meshing software. The deliverables from one of the workflows in Pointfuse are meshes. They have to be meshes for the computer to better visualize a 3D model. I mean, it needs mesh surfaces. But our meshes are fundamentally different to what I'll term traditional meshes. So if you produce a traditional mesh, you're going to produce a big three-dimensional surfaced model that is essentially a data blob. It's usually being produced by essentially making a dot-to-dot diagram, so a triangulation diagram between all the points in your point cloud, and you have this beautiful-looking mesh model that's produced, where you can see surfaces, recognize in the point cloud. The difference is that when you zoom into it, you're seeing surfaces as opposed to gaps between points. But when you use that data product from traditional meshing software, you're essentially still needing to only use it as background. So if you brought that into Revit, you'd just be using that as background information to digitize to, or you'd be bringing that into your visualization software, and again, will look beautiful. You better interpret what's going on in your environment. But when it comes to trying to edit that mesh, you can't break it up. Whereas with a Pointfuse mesh, we've got a unique meshing algorithm that splits the fundamental surfaces that you will see in your model into their own entities. So what I mean by that is that one wall in your building will typically be one surface in the model. And if you click on that surface, you'll see that the Pointfuse algorithm has made that surface into its own individual entity within that model.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because we're now able to automatically assign these discrete entities to shapes in the scene, so your walls, your individual pipes, it means that now you can now start attaching attribution to those surfaces in the mesh model.
Mm-hmm.
And when you export that as an IFC or an FBX or even an NWC for Navisworks, any classification, any naming, any labeling that you apply to those surfaces is preserved in the model in that downstream environment. And what it means essentially is that when you bring those models into your 3D coordination environments, so your BIM 360s, your Navisworks, your Vistos, you essentially have a labeled 3D model imported, regardless of whether or not it's come from a point cloud or not.
Oh yeah.
Um,
No.
and what that also has enabled us to do is further develop workflows which produce derivative products such as parametric models from that mesh model. So because we classified the mesh model, Pointfuse has got additional workflows in what we term what we call the space creator module,
Okay.
which produces BIM LOD 200s type
That's amazing.
IFC object models now, which essentially Revit will take in and convert to Revit families and not want to spit out like many other externally created classroom. So, and that's given a further range of workflows for our clients working especially within space measurement and the facility management industries.
Yeah, that's
So,
amazing. That is so
so
amazing.
it's really giving intelligence to what would otherwise be just visual mesh data sets.
Yeah, and you know what? This like separating it out and providing a more honed down approach to this, it really, it really simplifies this proverbial shit show that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's been insane to say the least to try and convert a a model that was produced in a point cloud and even from a large scale mesh, which I have tried. And for those of you who have tried a mesh, like a full scale FBX mesh, and tried to bring it into any software, if you want to see your computer light on fire, that's give it your all. It's amazing. But so I mean, obviously this is expanding. Things are improving, and with that being said, like, what does the future of Pointfuse hold for companies trying to quickly convert, point clouds to BIM?
Well, what we're increasingly seeing is, especially the larger construction firms,
Mm-hmm.
are implementing Pointfuse as a fundamental enterprise-wide step
Mm-hmm.
to assist the management of any point clouds collected for any project.
Yep.
So what bringing Pointfuse in does is give a standardized way to convert that point cloud into a structure which is
Yep.
which is compatible with any of their 3D coordination tasks or digital construction tasks, or even building wider digital twin related enterprise models or of the sites that they're working on. So, what we're seeing are large VDC teams purchasing multiple licenses of Pointfuse, which is really facilitated by a structure we have related to using full licenses and also what we call Pointfuse Teams licenses
Okay.
to really enable scalable data management workflows that allow point clouds across multiple projects to be used more effectively simultaneously,
Mm-hmm.
and by reducing the time that it takes to convert that point cloud into essentially something more usable.
Yeah.
What we're finding is that point clouds and laser scanning services are now actually being used at far more frequent intervals throughout a project.
True.
So traditionally, what might have happened is that a site might have been scanned once, and then the construction firm may have waited 2 to 3 weeks for their Revit model or similar to be produced at whatever cost. And essentially, what it means is that those types of stuff. But so although they got a initial as built for the site, what it meant is that those types of time scales meant that it just wasn't always feasible to come and scan and model again at other phases throughout that construction project as well.
So true.
And now what we're finding is that because we're reducing that time by 70% to produce a model that can be used in verifying that site, it means that the contractors are able to use scanning far more frequently through the project, and are able to benefit from the project savings that come from processes such as clash detection at far more regular intervals throughout the entire project. And all that's going to do is just essentially, reduce costs, increase margin, enable projects to be delivered ever more competitively.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, obviously the hardware side of it is a big part of it too. I'd love to see the future of where this is going. The scanning applications are getting insane. We're starting to see, LiDAR happening on the iPhone, which is a good start. It's not quite there yet. I've had the opportunity to use it myself. But a great step in the right direction. So I mean, with hardware and software starting to become more ingrained, as you've seen with the RTC from Leica, do you foresee point clouds being converted to mesh within the scanners? Like, is that something that Pointfuse has looked at?
Well, I think really there are. I think sort of scanning hardware and software are always going to continue to evolve in parallel to each other. Systems such as the RTC collect incredibly detailed point cloud data sets, and depending upon what scanner settings you use, incredibly large data sets as well. And what we always have to remember is that when you're processing point clouds, it's really magnifying your math problem, by a millionfold every time, kind of thing. As soon as you scale up the volume of data you're having to process, of course, to actually do the computations required for any automated process, is you're going to require additional resources, potentially additional time as well. And so, if you're going to start doing this in the field, well, theoretically you can be meshing in the field already. I mean, you just need to have a big enough laptop in your truck. We have clients who do that already. They'll mesh their point cloud before they leave site, and visualize what they've just scanned before they leave site again. Whether or not we see mesh outputs come from the scanners and that sort of thing, well, I think we're all reliant upon increases in the computer processing capability and that sort of thing on these types of systems. But fundamentally, in our minds, we want to make sure that Pointfuse remains a software of choice for converting any type of point cloud, whether or not it be from your iPhone or from your handheld scanner or from your terrestrial scanner or from your mobile scanner, into a data model that can be used far more efficiently in the downstream processes. Because at the end of the day, we would love it if as an industry we're making far more increased use of reality capture data and 3D data in general.
So for those of you who can't see the YouTube channel, I am holding up a Faro Focus M70 scanner. This is one that I use every day on site. So I had been mentioning the RTC quite a bit, but I actually do use a Faro here. And we regardless of where the data is coming from, there's a lot of crazy devices out there. The one thing that Will just said is like the data comes in all forms, but being able to parse it and sift through it and categorize it, put everything into a nice, multifunctional usable mesh is so key. And if you haven't, get a trial, try it out, because the software does work and it works very well, and it does help with your process. And this is just a personal personal opinion. This is not a plug. I mean, there's the red Pointfuse stuff all over Will's body there, and that's okay because they should be tooting that horn. They've done a great job creating this software, and kudos to you, kudos to the team. I'm happy to see where it's going to go, and hopefully I'll be using it soon on my next project. So we will see. But you know what, Will, thank you for jumping on the line. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Keep us posted on everything new that's coming on Pointfuse. And for the listeners, make sure to go check out the website, test out the product, and have some fun with it. Make your point cloud life easier. So
that's pointfuse.com. That's pointfuse.com, and you can download a trial directly from the website. Thank you very much, Dennis.
No problem. Thank you very much, Will. And for everyone else, keep on BIMing. Take care.
Thanks for listening.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.